storm, kind of a characteristic storm that you would see, in Tornado Alley. So this is a very, very dangerous situation for South Mississippi. And you can see just how volatile the environment is today for these storms to even have the ability to form. So that's that classic hook echo signature where you could get a significant tornado and see some significant damage in this vicinity. I do want to zoom out because I just want everyone to know that this is in adjacent South Mississippi. This is away from our viewing area, but since the storm is so considerable and so large, we are back on to track it because of what kind of damage it is likely doing in South Mississippi now. So this is a big deal. This is a big deal storm. The rest of today, we're going to be watching for the potential for storms like this. I want to zoom out and show you what's going on in southeast Louisiana. So we do have this line of storms advancing to the west. Strong storm moving through Gonzales. The line is moving west to east, but the storms themselves are kind of moving more of a northeasterly trajectory. So none of these storms have any severe warnings now, but everything can kind of happen quickly. That's why we want to make sure you stay weather aware today, because some of these storms can spin up very quickly and drop a tornado, and it's just a matter of minutes before you really know what's going on. So I'll zoom in closer to the South Shore. Really nothing really happening yet. It's just kind of the beginning of what's happening. So this is just kind of a good sign and a good warning to let us know, hey, today is a day to really pay attention to what's happening. Stronger storm moving through Gonzales, moving into Livingston Parish. So this is west of I-55. That's a strong storm. Quite a bit of rain, heavy rain, and quite a bit of lightning. Gusty winds, of course, within these storms. There is another storm that has moved into northern Tangipahoa Parish. Again, this is Kentwood. That's a strong storm producing gusty winds, heavy rain, probably some small hail with that storm as well. We'll be watching storms that move in this direction, especially on the North Shore, that could turn very strong and drop a very significant tornado. It's possible. It's a possibility for today. And it is happening. It is happening in South Mississippi. I did want to take just the warning off and I do want to take the lightning off because you don't really see storms of this magnitude, I feel like, down here in the Gulf Coast. I mean, this is like a textbook. I am speechless right now because I can't believe the way that this looks right now. This is certainly a dangerous situation. You can see just how bad it looks on radar. That is north of Tylertown in South Mississippi. It is certainly sending alarm bells to the National Weather Service. They're upgrading that to a tornado emergency for Walthall County near Salem, Mississippi, and the rural areas of northern Walthall. And they just sent that update now at 12:50. So this is a very serious situation for South Mississippi. Walthall County, you want to stay inside completely. Protect yourself from this storm. This is a significant storm doing significant damage. This is a serious situation, and we could see more storms like this today. I will zoom in even more. If you have any friends or family that you know that live in northern Walthall and South Mississippi, you need to make sure they know that this is happening. You just give them a call and make sure they know that there is a significant storm moving near Mells, near Deanan. I know these are kind of small town names that maybe only, a few hundred or a few thousand people know about, and it's really important that they get this information, even if it's in a rural area. People live there. This is a huge deal along Highway 538, along Highway 27 in this area near Darburn. It's moving towards Darburn. It's moving in that direction. You can see just how serious this looks on radar. So this is doing significant damage. This is a huge deal. This is ripping through this county in South Mississippi. I really hope that this is in a more rural area, and I hope that this is not really impacting people, but you don't know for sure. Especially in these really spacious counties in the Deep South. There are homes, there are mobile homes, and I hope everyone is able to remain safe and to stay inside and to wait this storm out, because this is a very impressive one. I don't mean to say impressive because it's not, it's horrible that this is happening, but the magnitude of this storm is pretty crazy. It's pretty unreal right now. I have not seen a storm like take this kind of shape, at least in this region. In quite some time. So it is certainly a huge deal. I did want to check back in on closer to home in southeast Louisiana, in South Mississippi, in our viewing area. There are no warnings now. There are no warnings happening now, but we are watching this line of storms advance to the east. So I do want to put the the watches and warnings back on and the lightning back on, just kind of to show you what's happening for us. We've got some storms headed towards Tangipahoa Parish. One semi-big storm moving through Kentwood. It's just some heavy rain, some brief gusty winds and lightning with that storm. Nothing severe at the moment. These storms are west of I-55 headed towards Tangipahoa Parish. But yeah, we are just kind of in the beginning stages of this. And I want to provide some further updates about what's happening now. Kind of just like a wider look at what's going on, because like I said, this is the beginning of the storm kind of outbreak for the Deep South, at least for our part of the Deep South today. We'll continue to watch this line of storms advance eastward over the next few hours. Things look to improve once we get to about 7 o'clock tonight. We've been talking about this extremely high situation, or extremely dangerous situation possible today for the Deep South, the 5 out of 5 risk, which is being realized for Mississippi now and for parts of Alabama, parts of Mississippi. And it's happening now, and we're still here at home and at a level 4 out of 5 risk. So it's not quite as high, but it's certainly pretty significant for us to have this risk for the North Shore and for the New Orleans Metro is included in this. The risk isn't as high for the New Orleans Metro, but there's still a threat today for some strong to severe storms for the metro area. So North Shore, river parishes, South Mississippi included in this. So this is something, of course, we've been monitoring for days, and we are continuing to monitor the latest on this. There's actually new updates coming in from the National Weather Service. I'll pop the radar back on just because it's such a considerable threat for South Mississippi. Someone in Mississippi from the State Department of Health said that he is hearing in Walthall County that campers have been overturned and people are being impacted by this in their campers in South Mississippi. So this is extremely dangerous situation for Walthall County in South Mississippi. I'll zoom back in. This is basically this is a tornado emergency for them. So I just wanted to throw this back on and show you what is happening there and just how significant that storm is. So just to kind of let this be a reminder to stay weather aware throughout the course of our Saturday, because we can see these significant storms pop up. I just wanted to walk you through kind of the Precisioncast outlook for today so we can get a better idea on timing for our immediate area and in South Mississippi. I know we have this huge significant tornado happening for our neighbors in South Mississippi, but I wanted to pay attention and back down to what we've got going on for the rest of today. So as the line advances eastward, these storms for us as we go into the afternoon can bring those wind gusts possibly up to 50 or 60 miles per hour, and the risk for some hail and again tornadoes. The risk for significant tornadoes is higher on the North Shore, higher north of I-10 and north of I-12. So over the next few hours, storms will continue to advance to the east. This is 3 o'clock. We're dealing with storms, New Orleans Metro, 3, 4 o'clock. We've got some strong storms happening across the South Shore. Some severe storms, again, happening across the North Shore, lasting until about 5 o'clock tonight. Getting into 6, 7, that's when our storms sort of pass off to the east and we'll be done with this. And we do have a quieter, nicer day on the way tomorrow. So this is kind of just the beginning of what's to come today. So, you know, certainly want to stay weather aware, download our app, make sure you can get weather warnings on your phone, on social media, online, on TV, just so you know what exactly is unfolding today, because this is certainly a big deal. This is a big deal weather event. And it's truly scary and a shame that people have to go through something like this right now. This tornado is long-lived, like we've been talking about. It's long-lived and long-lasting. I do want to, not to be repetitive, but I do want to just let us know that this is in South Mississippi, moving away from our viewing area, but you can see just how quickly how things evolved or devolved in this situation into something pretty bad. This is a tornado emergency for South Mississippi. So cities of Salem and Darburn just need to continue to stay in their safe place. And if you have any friends or family, make sure they know that this storm is headed towards them. Bassfield, this general vicinity in South Mississippi now, it's a tornado emergency. This tornado has been long lasting and has done considerable damage in its path in southern and southwestern Mississippi. So we'll continue to monitor these storms throughout the course of the afternoon, kind of taking a wider look. Like I mentioned, we're tracking some heavier showers, some stronger storms west of I-55. They're moving towards Tangipahoa Parish. They are not severe warned at the moment, but we are watching them to see it's possible, these things kind of happen pretty rapidly and pretty quickly. We'll be watching for the tornado risk through the rest of the afternoon. But like that severe risk we were showing you earlier and the last couple of days, it was a bit more pronounced and a bit higher into Mississippi and Alabama, and you can see why. You can see just how dangerous this situation is for them. And, we're not completely out of the woods when it comes to the possibility of these storms impacting us, especially north of I-10, north of I-12, getting into this afternoon and through the early evening. We're not going to be done with this until about 6 o'clock for the entire area. 6, 7 o'clock is when things pass off to the east. I'll throw in some other products to see kind of what the situation is with hail. Some of these storms certainly producing some small hail, like the thunderstorm in Kentwood, some pea-sized hail in the Kentwood area along I-55. So there is some small hail falling out of some of these storms at the moment. Also some heavy rain and quite a bit of lightning. So you want to stay inside. You don't want to be caught in a storm like this, especially with all the lightning flashing and the risk for quickly evolving situations that could turn, pretty intense throughout the course of this afternoon. So this is a very significant storm that's continuing to move into South Mississippi, heading in this direction towards the northeast. Tornado emergency for them. So that is a significant situation. It's unreal just how long this storm has sustained itself and continues to move to the northeast. This is along Highway 27 in South Mississippi, again, moving in this direction towards Highway 43 at the moment. So let me zoom out just to get a better orientation of what's kind of going on at the moment. We've had a lot of moisture surging in from the Gulf. We had our dew points surge up into the 70s. It is warm, it is moist. We have an active upper pattern and an active surface level pattern that has evolved across the Gulf Coast. So the severe weather risk today was very high. A lot of ingredients came together. The wind shear is there. We always talk about wind shear during severe weather season, which it is now. It's springtime, pretty typical when we have severe weather come in the springtime. We have our secondary severe season kind of in the winter. We talk about shear when it comes to hurricanes, but shear when it comes to severe weather. We've got surface winds coming in from the southeast. We've got upper level winds coming in from the west, and it allows these storms to rotate, to drop a tornado. And with those ingredients in mind for today, that's why the environment is pretty much primed for these kind of storms to happen and do such significant damage like we are seeing in South Mississippi now. Again, moving to the northeast, moving away from southeast Louisiana, and moving away from our part of South Mississippi. So this is for our friends and neighbors just over the state line. These storms that are headed towards Tangipahoa Parish, they are big. They are big storms. There are some heavy showers moving along I-10 and quite a bit of lightning. And of course, we could see some small hail like the one we're seeing in the storm that's happening in Kentwood. We've got some brief gusty winds as well. A tornado warning is just going to be issued now for this storm near Kentwood. That is the latest from the National Weather Service. A new tornado warning right now. It is just after 1 o'clock. A new tornado warning has been issued for the thunderstorm that is impacting northern Tangipahoa Parish right now. It is just east of Kentwood. That's where the suspected area of rotation is. So if you live along Louisiana 38 in northern Tangipahoa Parish, make sure you stay away from windows and doors. Get to your safe place now, a room, a closet. Just, play it safe, protect yourself from any sorry, I had my producer talking to me in my ear. She's going to find some cameras to check out and see if we can see anything out there. Anyway, back to what we're looking at here. This is the tornado warning now. Northern Tangipahoa Parish, that's right there. That's Washington Parish. The storm that it looks to be producing a radar-indicated tornado, indicated tornado is just east of Kentwood. So if you live in the Kentwood area, along Louisiana 38, if these streets ring any bells, Highway 1054, it's kind of hard to see, Spring Creek Elementary School, in this area, which is just near Kentwood, that's where you want to stay inside and wait this storm out. We not only will we have the possible rotation within these storms, we're talking strong winds anyway. Strong winds are strong winds. We could be seeing some pretty elevated gusts within this storm, 50 or so miles per hour. Which can certainly do some minor damage, some minor damage, and maybe knock out some power. So this is a strong storm capable of producing a tornado. It is moving just east of Kentwood along Louisiana 38. Again, these storms themselves are moving by rapidly to the northeast. Kind of a zoomed out look. This is northern Tangi. This is Washington Parish. The tornado warning does include Washington Parish, the northernmost part of it, but the worst part of the storm itself is moving east of Kentwood now. I'll zoom out even more to kind of get a better orientation of what's happening. This storm here started to take on this characteristic look of rotation where winds are going in opposite direction and where you can get these storms to produce a tornado. So it's just radar indicated now. There is no confirmation of anything at this point, but we're going to continue to watch and see if there's any signature on any debris signature. It's possible there could be some debris being lofted in the air. You can kind of see these different colors here that indicates there could be some tree branches, leaves, maybe some shingles, things of that nature being lofted into the air. So it's kind of expansive where you can't really get a good idea as to like a localized area of rotation on here, but there could be some debris at least being tossed around kind of up aloft, higher off the ground in this storm, because it is shaping up to be one of those stronger storms. It's like this pathway. This is where the significant one was earlier, and this is where the new one is now. So it's almost like in that same zone, that same environment it's tapping into to be able to get a rotating thunderstorm, at least a radar indicated rotation at the moment we're showing you here. So we'll pull back up on the storm relative velocity. This gives you a good idea of where a suspected tornado would be. It's along Louisiana 38. This is a suspected area of rotation. So again, northern Tangipahoa Parish needs to stay aware today. Stay in their safe place and just wait the storm out, wait for it to pass. If you know anyone that lives kind of near Spring Creek Elementary, near Midway Church, Lewiston Road, Spring Creek Ball Field, this area is where the suspected tornado is. So that is kind of the area of concern at the moment. Again, this storm, I'll put some motion on it to show you where it's headed. The different colors, like what I was mentioning before, the green indicates the winds that are going towards the radar site, and the radar site is in Hammond. The red indicates the winds that are going away from the radar site. So you get that twisting motion, and you can see just how quickly it came together. It quickly spun up, and now we're dealing with a possible tornado, possibly, lofting some debris in the air. So we'll continue to watch this as it progresses eastward in northern Tangipahoa Parish. So if you live in northern Tangi, stay in your safe spot now. Like I mentioned, like a bathroom, a closet, just away from any windows and doors. Give your friends and family a call. Make sure they know. They might already know by now because these storms are loud and they are kind of blowing through the North Shore and blowing through South Mississippi. So I think everyone is pretty much aware that this is happening up there. It's just these storms can become so volatile so quickly and drop these tornadoes. And we're going to continue to watch and see how this unfolds in the next several minutes as we wait for the latest radar scan. I'll pull back up the reflectivity, this traditional look of radar to show you the rain and the lightning and kind of the shape of this storm as it kind of looks more like it's kind of spinning around and trying to wrap around itself. And that's the alarming part. That's what's alarming, that it can kind of wrap around and do a rotating motion. And as it continues to pull up to the northeast, can it tap into that environment where that other storm was and get worse? Right now, the latest scan has the storm kind of not as well structured, which is a good sign. I did want to pull back up the different piece of information to look and see. Well, kind of looking at this though, I take that back. I think that scan might have just been a little bit messy. I think the rain might have just been kind of covering it. I think that, okay, here we go. We're looking at the winds. You can see the rotation is clearly still indicated here on our storm velocity. That's why we look at different products, because sometimes the rain can kind of disguise what's happening. You look at the wind product and you can see that the winds are still wrapping around itself, and this is where the suspected rotation, the suspected tornado would be. I'll zoom in even more. I know it's kind of hard to see, kind of recognize where you're at here, but this is Louisiana 38. Lewiston Road, again, near Spring Creek Ball Field. In this general vicinity, we're watching this suspected tornado, radar indicated tornado now. I will zoom out once again to put some motion on the storm. Still watching it kind of rapidly push off to the northeast. Zoom out even more to see what's coming in on the backside of this storm. Just kind of a messy area of thunderstorms behind this tornado warning, which is in effect for the next several minutes. The warning itself, again, like I mentioned, includes parts of Washington Parish, but the storm still is located in Tangi, and it's going to continue to move in this northeasterly direction, so it'll just clip the northwesternmost part of Washington Parish in the next several minutes. And then it will eventually make its way towards Tylertown in South Mississippi. So that's where we're at right now. The most significant part of it is making its way into the most northeastern part of Tangi, and it will start to graze and clip into Washington Parish in just a few minutes. So I want to zoom out and just pay attention to any other storms that are on the map here. We're watching for these on the backside of this, west of I-55. We'll be watching to see if these can wrap around, if these can produce a tornado. It's in that environment now where things fire up very easily. So we'll continue to monitor this. Actually, a severe thunderstorm warning has been issued farther back to the west, a little bit farther west than our area. That would be towards Jackson, Louisiana. So a little bit farther to the west, but again, a sign of things to come where these storms are very strong and can certainly turn very strong. And I want to zoom back into the tornado warning to get you an idea as to what's happening here. So we've got the warning. I want to pull up the hail tracker to see if there's any. Yep, so we've got some hail falling out of this storm, a little bit bigger than pea-sized hail. So we do have some hail likely falling out of this storm. I'll use our product that can detect an area of rotation, which we are, of course, discussing just a moment ago, near Louisiana 38. So you can clearly see on our product here that kind of tracks where a possible tornado is, can show you where this is unfolding. Again, that's along near Louisiana 38 in northern Tangipahoa Parish. So that is the place where you definitely want to stay inside and make sure you just wait this storm out, because it is certainly could be, causing some debris to being lofted up in the air. I did want to throw the debris kind of product back on and check and see if there's any big signs of anything being thrown up into the air. It's not overwhelming. I do think that there is something kind of going on here. There could be some tree branches, some shingles kind of being tossed up with this pretty strong storm. So it's possible that this storm could be doing that, could be tossing some debris aloft at the moment. And that is right near the state line. Here's Mississippi, here's Tangipahoa Parish, the northernmost part of it. So there's a lot to track, there's a lot to look out for today. I did want to continue to note that this is kind of just the beginning of how the afternoon is going to look. Storms are going to continue to intensify going into the rest of today. So if you're just joining us now, it's 1:10 in the afternoon. There is a tornado warning in effect for northern Tangipahoa Parish and Washington Parish and adjacent Mississippi counties. The storm itself is pretty strong right now in northeastern Tangi. It doesn't look as organized as it did before, but sometimes the rain can kind of disguise the rotation, but the storm itself does not kind of have that characteristic organization as it did a couple minutes ago when it was scanning the radar. But still want to heed the warning, still want to stay indoors and let this kind of pass, because it looks like, like I showed you just a few moments ago on the rotation tracker and on the debris tracker, that there could certainly be some debris being lofted in the air. It's not as evident as we were just looking at a few seconds ago. The signature is not as evident as it was before, but it's still possible we could be having some debris being lofted up in the air. Taking a look at a different product here, storm relative velocity. Again, this is the winds that show you the rotation. Again, the green meaning the wind going towards the radar site in Hammond, the red meaning the winds going away from the radar site. This is a good sign. This is actually a good sign. The latest scan here shows that the winds are kind of separating a bit. They're not tightening up as much. This can change, though, in the subsequent scans. Maybe it wraps up into itself, but now it looks like the rotation itself is not as evident on the radar scan, at least from what I'm seeing. But still, we're talking strong winds within this storm. Definitely going to be seeing strong gusty winds within this thunderstorm, regardless if they're tornadic or not. They could just be regular thunderstorm winds. It is going to be a pretty big, impactful storm that is pushing now into South Mississippi. So I did want to kind of zoom out and reorient and look at it from that traditional radar look here on that live radar picture. So you can kind of see it's just a messy storm going into this vicinity off to the northeast and crossing into South Mississippi very shortly. So a lot of moving parts with this. I'm also monitoring the National Weather Service to see if there's any kind of new information coming in, if there's any sort of damage reports or things of that nature. Not seeing anything when it comes to the northern Tangi storm. No reports of damage, which is always a good sign, though sometimes it's a little bit delayed. So that's the one thing we're kind of going to kind of see and what happens with this storm. But no reports of damage now. Like I mentioned a second ago, the storm itself wasn't as evident on our storm velocity product. The rotation itself is kind of more messy, meaning it's kind of breaking apart a little bit. It's coming apart. It's not as prominent on radar, which is a very good sign. You don't want to see the reds and greens close together. When they start to come apart, it's a good sign that the storm is kind of weakening. But things change a lot just because it weakened now as the storm continues to tap into a very rich environment and a very supportive environment for severe weather. It can spin back up. So I just want to, put that out there that, things kind of look good and then, a few minutes later and things kind of change. So a lot of moving parts to monitor. So you still want to stay in your safe spot if you're in northern Tangi, if you're in adjacent South Mississippi. The storm, the warning box does include Washington Parish, but the storm itself is already making the cross into South Mississippi. So I don't think Washington Parish is going to really see any massive impacts, maybe just right on the corner of it. Like that is the far northwestern corner of Washington Parish, just so you know what we're kind of looking at here, because I know we're zoomed in and it's hard to kind of see where we're at on the map. But the storm itself, at least the worst part of it, where it looks like it could be rotating, which is right here, is crossing into South Mississippi. So more storms moving in that northeasterly direction now. Still though, significant rain, lightning, some gusty winds for South Mississippi, parts of the North Shore, right near the state line. Certainly a big deal for us to watch. I'll zoom out again to show you what's happening on the backside of that storm. More strong storms that have the capacity to produce tornadoes are approaching I-55. They are approaching Tangipahoa Parish. So this is kind of the corridor of where the roughest weather has kicked us off this afternoon. And that'll continue probably to be the trend over the next few hours. This is the zone, the North Shore, where the storms have a better chance of producing stronger tornadoes and longer track tornadoes like we've been talking about. That's just where the best support really is for the storms today. I'm watching this storm west of Hammond and seeing what that does. That looks like it's producing quite a bit of lightning, of course, as you can see there, but strong winds as well and heavy rain and certainly some hail likely falling from that storm. We'll watch it and see if it has the capacity to rotate. Just like we've been talking about all day, the ingredients really are lining up. I did want to zoom back in and pay back attention to this tornado warning. Here we go with the latest. It's still, the warning now is starting to kind of get shaved back from Tangipahoa as the storm itself moves and crosses into South Mississippi. Like I said, the rain kind of makes it a little bit noisy on there, and it's a little bit harder to see the rotation always when it's just the traditional radar view. So I'm looking at the storm velocity, and this kind of shows me that the radar is showing that the storm is separating a bit, which is a good sign. That's always a good sign. That means the rotation is not as prominent. There's a lower likelihood that there is a tornado. So that's a good sign. We'll watch it to see if it changes. Certainly something that could change as it taps into a richer, more unstable environment in South Mississippi. They are going through a lot. So I'm also getting some updates from our producer. We've got Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin is here. I know Meteorologist Alexander Cranford is in. So we got almost the whole team here tracking this. So we're probably going to be, going back and forth soon to kind of do like tag team coverage, because there is a lot to cover today. Like I mentioned, this is kind of the beginning of what's to come for this afternoon. And we've been talking about it all week, and rightfully so. We wanted to make sure everyone was really prepared for today, because we don't always see such significant severe weather risks like this for the Gulf South. So anytime we do, we want to make sure we drive it home, people know what to do. It's Saturday, everyone has off today. Well, most people have off today, and you just don't want to get caught off guard in a situation like this, as these storms really just kind of evolve quickly and they're pretty impactful. So this is where we're looking at now. The North Shore is kind of the zone to focus on. This storm, which is west of Hammond, west of I-55, moving towards Tangi, moving to the northeast, looks like a pretty strong one. So this is a strong storm we're watching. We'll be impacting Hammond very shortly, and we'll be impacting Tangipahoa Parish in a matter of minutes. This storm is certainly producing strong winds and heavy rain and lightning, probably some hail falling out of that storm as well. I don't want to ignore the tornado warning. I know I keep zooming around here, but I just want to show you kind of our eyes are all over the place because the storms are popping up all over the place. Strongest of the tornado warned storm looks to have crossed into South Mississippi. And you know what? It looks like, I'll try to see here what it looks like with our storm relative velocity, because I zoomed in with the rain and it looked one way, but then coming in on this picture here, it kind of shows you that the storm is still kind of separated, meaning that the likelihood of a tornado is a bit lower. Always a good sign. So I just want to keep checking back in on that. The worst part of the storm, again, crossing into our adjacent counties in South Mississippi here. Still some strong winds happening for the northernmost sections of Washington and Tangipahoa parishes now. So that's kind of what we're looking at with that storm. That storm is moving away from our viewing area, but we've got more to track on the back side of it. We'll continue to watch this line of thunderstorms. Moving from west to east, I'll do a complete kind of wide picture here. Moving from west to east, but you've noticed these cells that we've been tracking, these storms we've been tracking, have been individually kind of taking off and zooming off to the northeast. So that's going to be the projection and the trajectory of the storms, of the storm motion throughout the course of today. So we, of course, are going to kind of bring you the latest on what's happening. I know you're kind of giving me a look. I don't know if that's okay. Hey, so Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin, I think is kind of tapping into it now. Okay. Sorry, just wanted to toss it over to you. Yeah.
Kind of alleviate the talking over the last couple of hours as we've been watching these tornadic storms developing, really firing up a little bit more so in our North Shore parishes. We've started to see a lot of these kind of originate from more Livingston, St. Helena, push into Tangi, and then kind of quickly move parts of northern Washington as they continue along a trajectory into southwestern Mississippi. This is an area that had been highlighted while also under a tornado watch, also highlighted under for a potentially dangerous situation where this is the region of those stronger and long duration, possibly intense to violent tornadoes could form. Something we had been talking about even as we started to get a better picture of the breakdown of our severe weather threat. It still looked as though while we still have a significant threat of severe weather, we were going to be in southeast Louisiana and maybe a little bit more so on the North Shore, kind of the stepping off point or the springboard for these storms to really start intensifying. It's possible they do so on the North Shore, but certainly as they move deeper into Mississippi. So I want to just highlight again that storm that Alexa has been talking about, the one in northern Tangi, Washington, moving deeper into southwestern Mississippi and approaching Tylertown. We were showing you the velocities, the reflectivity, as well as where there is possible storm rotation. And you kind of see that couplet that we call where the winds are coming away from and toward the radar, which is down in Hammond. And so when you see those greens and reds right next to each other, and this is a rather large area of rotation. So if indeed a tornado, this would be a fairly large one. Now, one thing that we have the ability to do is the warning will actually change color. We saw that earlier in the last hour, where it goes from the red to kind of this pinkish color, meaning that it is a confirmed tornado on the ground. So as of now, it is not a confirmed tornado. This is just radar indicating, based on the rotation of radar, that there is quite possibly something on the ground. We can even use a tool to see if there is debris in this area. And while it doesn't jump out, it does certainly look like there may be a little area of possible debris that is being picked up by our radar. I know this is kind of a crazy looking color scheme here, but when you kind of see these mix of colors embedded within the deep red, that is a possibility of some debris being lifted aloft into the storm. So that is certainly a possibility. And as we've been mentioning, it does look like it's moved out now of southeast Louisiana and a little bit more so for southwestern Mississippi. Looks like a downstream. This is from the Weather Service. Again, we have a constant chat with them going. A new tornado warning is coming out for Walthall County, including areas that have already been included in that tornado warning. So again, this is just kind of a continuation of the tornado warning that we have in place. as it moves deeper into now southwestern Mississippi. So the threat in Tangi and northern Washington Parish, it is gone now. One other storm that the Weather Service was highlighting, and something I was looking at just before I came on air, is this storm that is going to be moving out of Livingston, moving into Tangi Parish. So kind of zooming in a little bit now around the Holden area down toward French Settlement. This is the area of thunderstorm activity and a possible rotation that the Weather Service is highlighting. Now, when I switch over to our velocities to see if there is a couplet showing up, not really anything at the moment. Switch over to the rotation. Some slight indications of rotation, maybe a little bit more around Verdun. So now more to the northeast of French Settlement, there is the potential of some rotation there. So not a tornado warning just yet, but one that is being monitored closely and analyzed by the Weather Service for potential as it does move further into Tangi Parish. So this is something that is unfortunately going to be with us through the afternoon and evening. I was also fielding a few phone calls from a couple of officials in Orleans Parish a moment ago, kind of asking when we should see these storms moving into the city. The activity that we're going to be watching that moves into the metro area is still well to the west or almost around the Donaldsonville, Gonzales, Pierre part down to Morgan City. So that activity is still a pretty good distance away from us, not even into our river parishes just yet, St. James, St. John, St. Charles. So we've got some time in the metro area, and it may be a little bit late afternoon, probably after 4 o'clock or so. We'll take a look at the computer model in just a moment to kind of time that out better for you, but that's going to be a little bit later into the afternoon. So if you're in the metro area, while I know driving into work, the winds are strong, but we do have a bit of time before the worst of those thunderstorms arrive. And just based on the modeling, it does look like a bit more of that significant risk will continue for our North Shore parishes. And I'm including St. Helena, Livingston, because this seems to be kind of the springboard of where these storms come from, and we're able to kind of track those before they even move into Tangi, Washington, or maybe even parts of St. Tammany in the next half hour or so, just kind of giving you that little bit more lead time before those storms continue along that trajectory. So re-emphasizing the storm that is up near Tylertown in Walthall County, you do see that new tornado warning that has now been issued, just a continuation of an area that, as mentioned, has already been highlighted around the Tylertown northeast. So this is just a continuation basically of that tornado warning. The one that you still see flashing that includes Tangi and Washington Parish, no longer really an issue as the rotation of that storm has already crossed the state line. So no longer an issue there. As far as the ongoing tornado warning, just to update again, Walthall County right around Tylertown. So in Tylertown, you want to be in that tornado safe space, centrally located room, a room without any windows, or as best you can on the ground floor, as again, that rotation still shows up, and very large rotation. Still nothing confirmed on the ground as it moves through a number of communities in from, say Pike County into Walthall County and continuing up toward Tylertown here shortly. So this is where you want to be in that tornado safe space over the next, these are moving fairly quickly, but just get into that room until we kind of sound the all clear for you. Again, what you still see highlighted here on our graphic, including northern Tangi, northeastern Tangi, and all of northern or much of northern Washington Parish, has since expired, as this is now more for central Walthall moving toward Tylertown, Mississippi. The other storm, as mentioned, that is being highlighted, kind of, in other words, really being analyzed in great detail by the Weather Service, is a storm that is over Livingston Parish at this hour, almost toward Albany now. So little bit more south, we'll say, of I-12 across Holden to Albany around around 190. So this is the storm that we're going to be watching as it continues along a path, taking it more toward the, say, Amite, Independence first, then Amite. So this area is being monitored right now for potential, nothing again at the moment, but potential. Certainly some very intense winds, some very strong rainfall, heavy rainfall, intense lightning, but something that is being closely monitored as it does move into now central and northern Tangipahoa Parish. So this is where our storms have really originated over the last couple of hours, kind of starting in that central Florida parish region as they move into our North Shore parishes. South of the lake, we have not had any issues yet. The winds are strong, but the storms are still several hours off. So let's take a look at, actually, I'm going to jump over here, and again, I apologize. Let's see if graphic here updates for me, and let's time it out. So this is our computer model, our high resolution model, kind of looking at the next couple of hours. So again, the continued threat, and notice the intensity of the storms on the North Shore. It does look like this is probably going to be where most, if not all, of our severe weather originates. Don't want to downplay the threat on the South Shore, but the trend has been probably a little bit more focused north of the lake. Of course, thank you. It, of course, only takes one rogue storm or some rotation within the line, even south of the lake, to spark a tornado. So don't want to rule that out, but it does look like at least the majority of our severe weather threat is going to be more North Shore. So again, timing this out, even over the next couple of hours, unfortunately, we're still looking at some of the storms over some of the same areas. Northern Tangi, this is at 4 o'clock, so we've got another 2.5 hours of these storms impacting northern Tangi, northern Washington, and deeper into southwestern Mississippi. It's around that time we may start to see some of the rain, some of the thunderstorms impacting the metro area. Kind of continuing this out after about 5 o'clock, starting to see maybe some clearing in central to northern Tangi, more central to eastern Washington, and western St. Tammany may start getting in on these storms. But notice how the line, at least south of the lake, not nearly as intense. This is 6 o'clock. May have some storms around the metro area, but again, at least the model trend has been far more activity North Shore and farther deeper into southwestern Mississippi. Again, remember, from Hattiesburg up to Jackson and then moving east into Alabama, this is where we have that high risk and a significant threat of intense or violent tornadoes through the afternoon, evening, and into the night. So it may be, again, maybe I'm saying this too soon, but it may be that we really avoid the worst of these storms over the metro area. By about 7 o'clock, may still have those storms around parts of Pearl River County and Hancock County. As far as the metro area goes, what remnant rainfall we have at around 7 o'clock is probably a little bit more toward the Biloxi Marsh and maybe parts of Slidell, St. Tammany Parish, around Pearl River in St. Tammany. And then by about 8 o'clock, storms are out of our area, still though impacting just to the east of Hattiesburg. So this is going to be an ongoing issue for the next several hours. And as mentioned, just based on the computer model trends, it does look like kind of an ongoing issue probably for the next 3 hours for parts of Tangi that are being hit right now. So this, unfortunately, is not going to be a quick line, as the line itself is almost intensifying as it continues along. We're talking about the entire line itself is slowly moving, and then within that line we have the individual cells or then complexes of storms that are moving southeast to northwest, so or southwest to northeast. So we're watching the individual cells or complexes along a line which really isn't moving very quickly. You can kind of look at this over the last hour. Watch out toward Opelousas. It's just to the east of Opelousas and then into Livonia, Louisiana, right along along 190, Highway 190. So it doesn't make a great deal of progress eastward over the course of an hour. So it's still well through the western Florida parishes, at least the western extent of the line of storms. So this is going to be an ongoing issue for at least the next 3 or so hours for our North Shore parishes, in particular those in central northern Tangipahoa Parish as well as Washington Parish, mainly because you're under the gun right now. We had talked about how the coloration of the warnings can change. We now have a confirmed tornado around Tylertown. So I'm seeing the, let's see, I'm just reading from what the Weather Service is saying about it. Again, confirming a tornado, large, dangerous tornado over Tylertown. That's about 20 miles to the east of Macomb, so even in some of those smaller communities between Macomb and Tylertown. But Weather Service is kind of tagging this as a particularly dangerous situation with a confirmed tornado on the ground for Tylertown, Mississippi. When we switch back over to our velocities, but you know, it just keeps just as bright as day as kind of classic textbook example of that couplet of rotation where the greens are moving toward the radar, which is down in Hammond, and the bright reds to almost orange to yellow moving away. And when you get those right next to each other, that indicates rotation and the possibility of a tornado, but now a confirmed tornado on the ground moving toward Tylertown. So kind of some of the smaller communities as we zoom in here. Mesa, you see the Union Baptist Church, if folks are kind of familiar with this, right along Highway 27. Here's Highway 48. Highway 98, so right in through there, Rushing, Mississippi. This is where a tornado is on the ground and you need to be in that tornado safe space. Of course, this is for Walthall County, not technically in our viewing area, but we do certainly have folks that watch us up there. So you need to be in that tornado safe space now because there is a confirmed tornado on the ground. As I said, these will change as the information becomes better available to the National Weather Service. So it will go from a tornado warning to then a confirmed tornado, and then a tornado emergency would mean that damage has already occurred and has been relayed into the National Weather Service office. So as far as confirmation goes, this is a confirmed tornado. It's going to be around the town of Salem in about 2 to 3 minutes or so. So something that you need, again, some of these smaller communities in Mississippi, you need to get into that tornado safe space right now as it is moving in your direction, a confirmed tornado on the ground in southern central Walthall County. Elsewhere, again, as that's moving out of our viewing area, we'll be watching an intense storm that is around the Independence area now, not quite to Natalbany just yet, nor toward Hammond, but it is certainly getting close to you. This is a storm that had been highlighted by the National Weather Service as one that will continue to be monitored. Let's switch over to the velocities to see if anything is jumping out. Okay, thank you. Just listening to our director, producers, as we're doing this in real time. Again, nothing really showing up. There may be a slight little kind of large couplet here. See if the rotation is indicating anything. Does look like maybe some rotation just to the southwest of that. So kind of moving into the near Tickfaw area, Natalbany, out of Albany now. So there is the rotation being detected by radar here. So certainly a supercell thunderstorm, meaning an intense thunderstorm, could possibly develop a tornado, which is why this is one that the Weather Service has been watching for the last half hour or so. As we kind of look back at the rotation indication does seem to have increased a bit. So something that is clearly going to be watched closely by the Weather Service office. You've got that larger couplet here. Certainly all of this is indicative of an intense thunderstorm, regardless of there being a tornado or not. Let's see. Okay, from the Weather Service. Weather Service actually covers a much larger area than even our viewing area. So while they highlight storms in the chat, it's not necessarily for storms that are necessarily in our viewing area. So they're concerned again about this tornado around Tylertown moving toward Darbin, Mississippi, only because this is very close to the track of the earlier confirmed tornado that we had seen in that same area. So I'm going to zoom back up on to that storm in Tylertown. Again, we'll continue to monitor the intense thunderstorm over Independence. We're not forgetting about that, and we have the active chat going with the Weather Service to see exactly what they have to say. But as the meteorologist at the Weather Service office are saying, it looks like it's now more to the north of Tylertown. Yeah, it's well to the north of Tylertown now, but as they mentioned, here's I apologize, Mellis, Mississippi, and then here's Darbin that they just mentioned in the chat. So this is the area in Walthall County that will then cross into Marion County shortly, as this couplet has been showing up fairly well in nearly the last 20, 30 minutes or so of scans of the radar. So this continues to be an ongoing significant issue. As we mentioned, it looked like this was going to be far more of a concern just as these storms kind of springboard out of the North Shore and then jump into southwestern Mississippi. And it looks like that is certainly where we have seen the most active of these storms over the last now almost hour and a half or so. A lot of this activity kind of got started at about noon or around that time, and they've only intensified as they move into a very hospitable environment for tornadic storms in southwestern Mississippi. As I just mentioned, Weather Service, as we continue to highlight this storm, moving away from Tylertown, but the town of Darbin, Mississippi, and again, I apologize, Mellis, Mississippi, along Highway 27. There is that bright couplet showing the rotation and likely, and they're also saying debris signature on the Tylertown storm. So let's go over to, boy, wow. Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's a significant debris signature. One thing that we were showing you earlier, and again, it's kind of a confusing looking graphic here. When you find these bright colors within the deep reds, that indicates debris, whether it's dirt, whether it's debris from structures being lifted aloft into the storm. You know, so you kind of at the bottom of the screen here, when it was right around where it says Highway 583, it certainly looked like there was some debris here. And then as we kind of continue this out, it passed right over the town of Melis, and that significant debris signature is still showing up as it moves toward Darbin, Mississippi. So right on the county line of Walthall and Marion County. So something that, again, just outside of our viewing area, but folks up there certainly have a lot of relatives and friends in our southwestern Mississippi counties. A lot of folks can see us up there, and even if you can't see us on air, may if it's on WWL Plus or you are streaming us other ways, this is certainly a very significant situation moving out of Walthall, or still in Walthall, but eventually moving out of Walthall toward Darbin, right on the county line with Marion County. Very significant debris signature showing up here. Yeah, that's a significant storm. Going back over to the velocities, and that little couplet just keeps showing up again. This is a confirmed tornado on the ground. The debris signature just plain as day. The velocities plain as day. Very intense rainfall, and you know, it's one of those things where folks maybe assume you can hear it or see it coming. This is a storm, if it's just to the north of Melis, that it is embedded within some very intense rain, lightning. You've already got the strong wind, so you're not going to see or necessarily hear anything coming towards you. So between Melis and Darbin, Mississippi, you want to be in that tornado safe space immediately, if not already, and just wait for the all clear as a confirmed tornado on the ground is continuing in that area. So just to reiterate, the town of, again, Melis, I apologize, in Walthall County, moving toward Darbin. It's something that is significant, as there is a confirmed tornado on the ground in Walthall moving toward Marion County. I want to also take a step back. Weather Service still monitoring the storm that I was just talking about, kind of around the Independence area north of Hammond. Still something that they are monitoring. Okay, there's just I apologize. When I stop here to pause, it's a new message comes in from the Weather Service. They're just continuing the tornado warning on that storm in Walthall, and they are continuing to monitor the storm in Hammond for any strengthening or tightening. They say, when I was talking about that couplet of the velocities and kind of showing kind of that large area around northwest of Tickfaw moving toward Independence, while that does show kind of that green and red, it's not very tight. It's pretty large. You don't see those colors right next to each other. So certainly, as I mentioned, a large rotation. So certainly a supercell thunderstorm. So regardless of a tornado right now, you're going to have strong straight line winds, possibly damaging winds, and certainly some intense rainfall. If that coloration, the couplet, starts to come closer together or actually shrink in size, that means it is tightening, and thus there may be a tornado trying to touch down. So just getting information here from other law enforcement of the storms that we have on the North Shore, in and around the North Shore parishes. Just everyone is very aware of what is going on, and officials are taking this one very seriously as we continue throughout the afternoon and into the kind of early evening hours. Again, a little bit more of a concern north of the lake. Don't want to certainly rule out the threat even south of the lake. However, it does look like the threat south shore is going to be far less, as well as we're not going to get into those storms until a little bit later on into the afternoon. A little bit of a report here now from actually one of our former coworkers, Ashley Rodrigue, who is with the Tangipahoa Sheriff's Office now. She is reporting that there have been several homes damaged, per the Kentwood Fire Department, so around Kentwood. One rescue was made. They have no injuries at this time. There is complete road blockage on, we have video of the Kentwood damage. Okay. Okay, so this is the damage I believe that we're referencing here. So I'm going to kind of, again, go back. Near a county store in?
A country store.
Country store in Kentwood. Yeah. Mike McDaniel, a little more familiar with some of these areas up in Kentwood on the North Shore. So multiple power lines are being reported down around Taylor Creek Road and Elk River Road in Amite. There is complete road blockage on Highway 1055, 1054, and as mentioned, several damaged homes. They have been cleared by the Kentwood Fire Department. One rescue was made. At this time, no known injuries from that Kentwood storm, at least at this hour, so, and hopefully no injuries. This again is per one of our former coworkers, Ashley Rodriguez with the Tangipahoa Sheriff's Office, Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff's Office, so we appreciate that information from her. And again, we're getting images now of the damage up there from a possible tornado from earlier. And again, these are the storms that kind of springboarded from the North Shore and then really started to intensify as they moved deeper into southwestern Mississippi. All right. Tornado warning is going to be issued now for the storm near Hammond. So this is why I love the folks at our National Weather Service office, because they give us this heads up and we can give that to you and give you that heads up. So the storm we've been talking about, and we should see, there it is. The storm that we've been talking about is now tornado warned. So this is for around the Natalbany, Independence area. This is going to continue toward Laranger, up toward Holton. And then notice how it does include a very large portion, because these have been fairly quickly moving storms. It does include much of western and central Washington Parish, including the town of Franklinton. I'm going to read the details of the warning as it just came in. The storm is near Independence. It's about 8 miles north of Hammond, moving north. Okay, this is north of Hammond traffic camera. Okay, so we can kind of watch this. Again, tell me again where this is. 55 at 190, so this is north of Hammond. We might be a little bit more south of that particular cell. It is a little bit more north of Hammond and the radar site in Hammond that we're watching right now. So you can see certainly kind of reduced visibility, slick roads out there. It looks like probably a bit stronger north of that, but to read what the Weather Service is just telling us, a thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado near Independence, moving northeast at about 40 miles an hour. Radar is indicating the rotation. Debris is certainly possible, as we've already seen with a number of these storms, and if that is happening, then damage will be likely to occur. This storm will continue along that trajectory toward the northeast and around Franklinton at about 210. Other locations that will be impacted by this thunderstorm are Tickfaw, I-55 between mile markers 37 and 40. This is the area right now you need to take shelter immediately. So in those areas I just mentioned, from Tickfaw to Independence, let's switch over to our velocities. And one thing that we had mentioned was the fact that we were going to have to see if these couplets kind of, one thing that's sometimes a problem when these cells are near, we actually get kind of interference when it is near the radar site in Hammond. So we actually have a little bit of interference. So I'm not able to show the couplet as clearly as we normally would when the storm moves a little bit farther away from the radar site. One thing I can do and see if our radar site at the airport is able to kind of pick it up, kind of that broad structure there. Let's go back to the rotation from Hammond. And there it is around Tickfaw at the moment in Natalbany. This is that indication of rotation from the radar that we had been watching steadily increase. It did look like we started to see that couplet kind of coming together, tightening, as I mentioned. And so because of that trend, the Weather Service has gone ahead and issued a tornado warning for this one. They're also issuing a tornado warning near Darlington and St. Helena Parish. So again, just outside of the viewing area, but certainly storms that have the potential if they hold together. So you kind of see it right here, north of Greensburg. Again, if this one holds together, could potentially clip just to the northwest of Kentwood, maybe extreme northwestern Tangipahoa Parish shortly as that storm moves out of St. Helena Parish and will continue into then Pike County, possibly into Walthall County, and possibly even clipping Tangipahoa Parish as we continue over the next couple of hours, or over the next several minutes. So not hours, minutes. These are moving fairly quickly. Again, highlighting the storm that we have around the Independence and Tickfaw area. This one is moving toward Larange. You see some of the streets highlighted as we zoom in here a little bit tighter. Wolf Lakes Road, we have some indications of rotation there. The town of Velma, just to the north of Independence, some rotation being indicated there, but certainly north and around Nottowbernee to Tickfaw, and then in a trajectory toward Larange, and then eventually continuing deeper into Washington Parish, which would then include, Franklinton, Stony Point, not Wilmer in eastern Tangipahoa Parish, but certainly communities south of Wilmer in that line between Independence to Tickfaw and up toward Franklinton. So all of those communities, you want to be in that tornado safe space immediately, as radar has been indicating, and after several passes of the radar on this storm, indications of rotation and something that needs to be taken very seriously. Again, with the we actually get technical term range folding, where there's actually some distortion in the velocities when you're fairly close to the radar beam itself in Hammond. So there's a little bit of distortion from the velocities there, but believe me, there is that rotation, because we also have other algorithms in the radar that are able to detect that rotation within the storm itself. So while it doesn't appear intense, again, there is a little bit of distortion when you're near the radar site, but certainly around the Independence, and actually we can switch back over to our reflectivity from the airport radar, which is in the river parishes, and you see that kind of fills in the gaps that are missing from Hammond. So these are the intense storms, Tickfaw to Independence, Larange getting in on some of the more intense rains, and those will continue up through Holton, south of Holton, Husser, is that Husser? Husser, and then continuing along the communities in then western Washington Parish and toward Franklinton. So another pass of the radar shows the intensity of this storm. Not quite getting the clear velocities from our radar out at the airport. The radar at the airport is called a terminal radar. It's not as powerful as the one in Hammond, but I'm trying to just get a little bit of overlapping data, since there is some missing near the radar site in Hammond itself. But I'll switch back over to the rotation indications. And boy, it's right over Larange now. So in Larange, you need to be in that tornado safe space now with the intense storms. Again, this is not something you can watch and wait for and assume that you're going to see it headed your way. This is something you need to be in that tornado safe space. These are embedded within some very intense storms. You get a lot of wind, a lot of lightning, heavy rainfall. You're not going to see or hear anything moving towards you. It's something you need to just anticipate, and thankfully we are able to give you that heads up. I know I'd spoken with Eleanor Tabone a little earlier today to kind of work out where exactly to go, and she is with our photojournalist Troy Toops on the North Shore. Eleanor, where are you?
Chris, that's right. Troy and I are heading right now over to Kentwood. Now, right before you issued that warning, Troy and I were battered on the interstate here with heavy, heavy rain. Troy had to slow down. Visibility was so low, and then we got that warning. So that might have been that rainfall that's preceding the tornado that's coming through that you mentioned, the warning for Independence. We had just driven through Independence minutes before that warning had come through, but like I mentioned, we're about 17 minutes away, Chris, from Kentwood, where we know a possible tornado may have hit down earlier. I've spoken to some people out there, and we're heading to a location where there might be some severe damage, like you mentioned earlier, some trees and power lines down. Right now, Chris, where we are, there's light rain, some sprinkles here on the windshield, nothing heavy like we saw earlier. But when we were coming through Independence, that rain was coming down really, really hard over here. But I can keep you updated, Chris, on what we're seeing out here in Tangipahoa Parish, like I mentioned, right now about 16 minutes away from Kentwood.
Okay, and again, where Eleanor is, she's already gone through Independence and Amite. The storms which are now northeast of Independence, where again we have a tornado warning in effect. That's where she was just saying she drove through that intense rain, strong winds. Where she is right now along 55, looks like light rain as she heads up toward Kentwood. But thankfully, it looks like the storm that is in St. Helena Parish right now will probably avoid the Kentwood area. I'm going to switch back over to our rotation indications, and it does look like that rotation will avoid Kentwood. Though you are under the tornado warning, it does look like it's probably going to stay just far enough to the northwest of Tangipahoa Parish that it won't impact as a rotation. If it does continue along that northeasterly trajectory, it would avoid them. But what she is going to investigate is the storm damage that we had just mentioned. There was damage reported in Amite, multiple power lines down on Taylor Creek Road, Elk River Road. Could have been from another storm, but you know, damage is damage no matter what caused it and no matter what storm it was. We're also getting reports of several roads blocked on Highway 1055, 1054, and several homes damaged in Kentwood, with the Kentwood Fire Department having to make one rescue. This is from a report about 12 minutes ago from the Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff's Office. No known injuries at this time, praying that there are no injuries with those storms as they passed on through. So Eleanor Tabone is headed up to Kentwood. We'll be able to get a more complete look at the damage from that. And hopefully no additional damage. We do have the ongoing... Okay, wow, we have video of the Kentwood tornado. This is from WBRZ, our partners in Baton Rouge. And wow, I mean, that's not one of these thin, small tornadoes. That would be a fairly significant tornado. Again, we don't classify them based on the reports or even the indications on radar. Unfortunately, they are rated after the fact, and it's based on the damage, and then we get kind of a wind estimate based on the damage. So we won't know exactly what this is, but just, you know, by the looks of it, this is certainly stronger than even just an EF0, especially based on some of the initial damage reports that we are getting from folks in Tangi, as well as up in Amite and Kentwood. So this is a look at that tornado kind of on the horizon. You know, what actually makes tornadoes, I lived in Kansas for a year after college, and out in the plains, you can see these miles away. You have nothing but open rolling hills and fields, and it's easy to spot these way off in the distance. One of the most dangerous parts of our southern Dixie Alley of tornadoes is the fact that we don't really have those wide open plains. We have a lot more vegetation, a lot more trees, and that tends to be more of a hindrance with regards to spotting these tornadoes way off in the distance. So that actually is one of the reasons why the southern tornado alley is far more dangerous than the one out in the plains. And you can kind of see that. We're only able to see the initial base of the clouds, the kind of start of the top of the funnel of the tornado. We cannot see it all the way down to the ground because of that tree line there from Kentwood. So it does make it a little bit more dangerous with regards to spotting these off in the distance. And certainly look like a fairly significant tornado from those earlier images. And again, what also makes it complicated is that when you start to see some of those, you don't know if it's just low clouds because of the tree line, or if it does continue down and is a complete funnel down to the surface, which does make it, again, also more dangerous with tracking these in real time. And I'm talking about tracking them as an observer, not from radar. So with all that being said, with the reports of the damage, with the now look like viewer video that went into our sister or partner station at WBRZ in Baton Rouge, we have confirmed tornadoes with confirmed damage. I'm sorry, okay, this is new. Is this also from Kentwood? Okay, this also is from Kentwood, and looks like another vantage point from that tornado. And you know, boy, that looked like it was probably a significant tornado at that moment, at the time this video was shot. You know, hopefully we're not seeing any kind of damage occurring in these videos. I hate when you do see that. Well, I mean, this is incredible video. Again, with just the vantage point of our terrain, they do tend to be difficult to see off in the distance. Wow.
And Chris, another thing for these tornadoes we've been tracking, they're kind of the same or similar cells going over the same spots. Like you were pointing out, right over that last tornado warning, there was a new tornado warning issued into Mississippi. And same thing for this is video coming out of Kentwood, and then even right now, like Chris was pointing out, it doesn't look like this cell is going right over Kentwood, but man, it's close, just a little bit out to the west where we're seeing significant rotation showing up on radar right now. And that cell, it looks like, heading somewhere toward Macomb, Mississippi. We also have that cell in Tangipahoa Parish moving toward Washington Parish. And I have a little timeline here I wanted to show you tracking that cell. It's moving at about 40 miles per hour to the northeast. So you can see its potential arrival at some spots. Looks like around Franklinton, could be in the next maybe 15 minutes. This particular tracker saying about 2:18, 2:19. Just kind of tentative timeline there. So you have a little bit of time there, but clearly it is moving, continuing off to the northeast with that particular cell. And this is the warning that's active for our immediate viewing area, and also it will be active until 2:30. So if you're wondering when this one is over, it's going to be at 2:30, or of course, if it changes before then, if it moves up a little bit faster and the National Weather Service cuts it off a bit earlier. Other spots potentially like Clifton about 2:23, Sheridan maybe about 2:30, and then some places like, for example, Dean Lee State Forest, maybe about 2:30, 2:31. That's what our tracker has right now. One other thing, of course, we're tracking most closely that tornado potential, but we also have a lot of hail showing up on our hail tracker as well, especially with these stronger storms that we've been tracking out to the north. These confirmed tornadoes in the pink boxes here. This is into Bassfield and north of Columbia, Mississippi. So this is removed from our southeast Louisiana viewing area. But you can see up to about quarter inch sized hail indicated by radar. It could be a bit bigger than that. In fact, the National Weather Service is pointing out some of these storms might bring some hailstones, maybe about an inch in diameter, which would be enough to produce possibly some damage. So we've got the hail potential, especially farther north, and then we have the rotation that we've been tracking as well. Looking at that rotation, it is very clear here off to the northeast of L'Oranger. So as we were saying, right at Husser around or just before 2 p.m., that's exactly where we're seeing it. So that's where the rotation is right now, not far from Holton, and then moving to the northeast, getting very close to Franklinton. So for our people in Franklinton, this would be a time to think of a safe place to go. You have maybe about, it looks like several minutes to get there, interior room away from doors and windows, somewhere on the first story or basement if you can find that. And we are going to be seeing that as I was tracking it, maybe in the next 10, 15 minutes, possibly around maybe 2:15 or so for Franklinton there. Also spots like Stony Point, Clifton, Pine Cliff, all these in the immediate tornado warning that officially goes until 2:30, and also into Pine. Right now, it's definitely Husser where we are seeing that rotation showing up very strong with our radar tool here. And if we go back over to our radar and see what that looks like, we certainly have significant rain coming down, lots of lightning. This is exactly where we're seeing the rotation with some of this heaviest rain here. Good bit of lightning, especially off to the north, and then this would be where that potential tornado would be happening, somewhere right around Husser and moving off to the northeast about 40 miles per hour. So we are anticipating it to keep going that way. Looking at, for example, that tool that Chris was talking about, our correlation coefficient, our CC, it's a little difficult to say, as he was saying, because the radar site moved, of course, from Slidell to Hammond. So right very close to that radar site, it's just, showing up. You can see just kind of a scattered image being so close to where that actual beam is coming from. So we'll check back in with that as we get, maybe let a few minutes pass and let it get a little bit farther from that radar site. Thankfully, we do, of course, have a tornado watch until this evening, but just that one warning at this point. And actually looking at some of the rotation farther to the west, kind of looking at what might be popping up or might be moving in soon, we're really not seeing that much right now, aside from that one spot, of course, that other spot now just to the north of Kentwood. But really nothing else is popping out as extremely likely to be producing a tornado coming behind that for the moment. Of course, this can change, but it does look like after we finish with this cell, moving now toward Franklinton and then probably off to the northeast toward potentially maybe the Angie area or farther north into Mississippi after that, farther into the 2 o'clock hour this afternoon. After that, it would be a great thing if we didn't see a whole lot more rotation, wouldn't it? If we just got some storms moving in, we have the gusty winds, heavy rain and lightning, but nice to see at least at this point that there's not a whole lot of more coming from the source, from the southwest, moving off to the northeast in terms of at least that rotation. Checking out what's happening south of Lake Pontchartrain, by the way. If you're joining us from New Orleans, maybe you've gotten some watch notifications on the North Shore for the tornado watch on your phone. Really, this is all we have going right now. Starting to see this line behind those first cells, which were producing all the rotation. We're starting to see it now at Baton Rouge becoming a little bit more linear, so that could be a good thing. You can still get spin-ups along a line like this. You can still have bowing sections where it kind of puffs out and indicates high wind potential. So still looking at severe potential for sure, but it is sometimes a good thing to see that line start to build in so that we are not looking anymore at the individual supercells out ahead of the system, which, as we know, can sometimes bring a lot more rotation and can sometimes turn severe, and they're the only storm out there, so they're really tapping into a lot of energy. When the energy is spread out a bit along the line, sometimes that can keep it more stable as it moves through and prevent some of those more severe gusts or rotational kind of spots, little spin-up areas from forming. Looking at our radar farther south, as I was saying, though, there's really not very much. A couple of showers around Houma, some thunderstorms south of Morgan City that we'll be tracking as they move to the east. And we've been pointing out also the line moving into the south of the lake spots later in the afternoon. I would still say maybe another 1 to 2 hours or so. But really right now our big focus is on that spot with the rotation in Tangipahoa Parish and moving toward Franklinton. A little bit easier to see perhaps right along the county or parish line here, moving off to the northeast and getting close to Franklinton now. When you see those reds and greens next to each other, the tighter they are, the more rotation indicated as the winds are kind of wrapping into each other. And that's what produces those different colors. Our rotation tracker also showing right there along the line from Tangipahoa into Washington Parish. That's where we're seeing this rotation and actually indicating some farther back too. But this is now, with that latest scan, it kind of jumped ahead a little closer to Franklinton. So let me just get this ready for you here. So Franklinton, actually it looks like it'll be a little bit quicker for you. I would say maybe next 5-10 minutes. So if you are in Franklinton, you've got this rotation with this cell moving toward you. There's some very heavy rain. So again, not sure if we're going to be able to detect a tornado. We'll see if we get any confirmation from the National Weather Service. Looks like they're just continuing the warning for now until 2:30 p.m. at this point. Some very heavy rain also, and this is getting toward Franklinton. Again, maybe 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. So if you are in Franklinton or in the red shaded box, I mean, this is the cell moving very close to your area now. Find that interior room that you've probably designated before, away from doors and windows, just somewhere safe to kind of ride out this particular storm just for maybe about 20-30 minutes or possibly less if the cell continues to the northeast a little faster. So it would be a good time to get to that spot and make sure that you're safe as that cell continues to the northeast. Checking again.
I'm sorry, Alex. Just to kind of help us out again, just tag teaming it here with all three of us in the Weather Center, watching these very closely. Really, the ongoing threat at this hour is the storm that Alex has been highlighting, and we've really been analyzing. The storm that is kind of moving out, almost out of eastern Tangi and moving deeper toward Washington Parish, especially the western part, Stony Point, and then toward Franklinton, and we were timing these out as well. Everything that I've been analyzing, not anything that's jumping out as what would be a confirmed tornado. Again, this is kind of a complicated looking graphic. It's debris signature, nothing showing up, not like the storm that we had up in Tylertown. That was a confirmed tornado. So debris, at least at this time, not showing up anything that is really jumping out at us. Even the reflectivity isn't just clear as day, as there is definitely some rotation right here. You kind of see it almost to the west, or excuse me, to the east of Stony Point. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Doing this in real time. Wasn't even showing the graphic I wanted to show. Looking at the storm itself, the debris signature not there. The velocities not jumping out as something very obvious, but again, radar is indicating that rotation, and the Weather Service had issued a tornado warning, something that we're going to take seriously, moving kind of probably out now of Stony Point. So Bickham, Franklinton, Jenkins, these are all the areas that need to be in that tornado safe space immediately, as this is where the ongoing threat is, at least at this time. We also have the storm that is in Mississippi. We'll continue to monitor that. As a matter of fact, I was talking to our assistant news director. We've got cameras, traffic cameras all over Macomb, and so we're waiting to see if this does in fact get close to Macomb. Watching the trend from the rotation, it's possible that the rotation actually stays a little bit more south of Macomb. We'll see if that does change direction, but just kind of based on the last 15 minutes or so of that rotation indication, it looks like it may stay just to the south of Macomb. But if we are going to see anything from those cameras, it's going to be around, it's going to be south of Macomb. So this is one of those cameras from, okay, so this is I-55 just north of the state line. So this is certainly close to where this tornado could be passing through. You can kind of see where the rotation is moving toward Magnolia. This is, okay, so this is in Catawba looking north. And there is the rotation just to the west now of I-55. This is a camera on I-55, and that rotation is certainly getting close. And when we switch over to our reflectivity, there does look to be some moderate to heavy rainfall around, not necessarily exactly where that camera is. It looks like where that camera is, if it is just north of the state line, we probably would miss that tornado. It looks like it would be a little bit too far to the north of this. And it looks like where that camera is, most likely just in this light to maybe pockets of some moderate rainfall, and probably a little too far south to catch that tornado, which would be a little bit farther to the north and maybe a bit closer. I'm going to switch back over to our rotation here, and probably would be moving a little bit closer toward the town of Magnolia, Mississippi in the next couple of minutes, because this rotation is indicating that it's probably right to the west of I-55 now in Walthall County. So this is something, excuse me, in Pike County. This is something that is, again, significant as it moves toward I-55 now to the west and maybe around the town of Magnolia. The ongoing threat that we have in southeast Louisiana, you kind of see a large area being indicated by the rotation tracker. Let's kind of track this out over the last 30 minutes or so to kind of get a rough idea of where it's moving. It moved over Husser, kind of stayed to the south of Holton, stayed around Stony Point, and is now moving toward Franklinton. So switching back to the reflectivity, Franklinton, you are in the gun. Bickham, up toward Clifton, if you kind of continued along Highway LA 25. These are the areas where you need to be in that tornado safe space immediately, as the storm is basically nearly right on top of you at this hour, or at this moment, I should say. And this is where you want to be, in that tornado safe space, as the storm continues now deeper into Washington Parish. We've already seen not this particular cell, but other cells very similar, having already caused significant damage in our North Shore parishes, and something that we need to take very seriously through the rest of the afternoon. I don't want to discount the South Shore, but we're still a couple of hours away from really getting anything, and at least based on the model trend, I don't think we're going to see nearly the intensity of the storms in the metro area that we would in our North Shore parishes, and then continuing into southwestern Mississippi. Looks like from the parish president of Tangipahoa Parish, Highway 1054 and 1055 toward the northeast has considerable damage being reported from the parish president of Tangipahoa Parish. No injuries being reported so far, hopefully none. Many homes are either damaged or complete devastation. Roads are also blocked from numerous trees down. So we had just heard probably 20 minutes or so ago from our own Eleanor Tabone and photojournalist Troy Toop. So we're headed in that direction. It might actually, just based on some of the reports that we're getting now, it may actually take a little bit of time for them to get there if some of these roads are blocked due to downed trees. But obviously government officials are in those areas, as we've already had reports of Kentwood Fire Department having to make a rescue and have already been in that area to assess the damage and kind of check on folks. So they are reporting that information as in real time as we can possibly get. So again, from the parish president of Tangipahoa Parish, Highway 1054, 1055, considerable damage, at least based on his report. No injuries. That was something we had also heard from the Tangipahoa Sheriff's Office earlier, but many homes either damaged or complete devastation. As mentioned, Eleanor Tabone is in that area, and as soon as she's able to get live or at least send us back pictures, we will have that for you on the air as soon as we get them. But with reports of a number of roads blocked from trees down, it may take her a little bit of time. She was about 17 or so minutes out from, so she's probably in that area now, just a matter of getting to the damaged area in Kentwood. So with that being said, and the numerous reports of damage, these storms, while they don't look nearly as potent, still that rotation, broad rotation, never really had the storm that is moving into Franklin. I don't want to discount it, but just what we're observing here in real time is that the couplet not nearly as strong. You just saw a new pass there. It is right over. So between Bickham and Franklinton, you need to be in that tornado safe space. You know, now not as many people have to just rely on turning up the volume on the TV, have the phone with our app in the closet, in a bathroom, in a hallway, and wait for us to give you that all clear in Franklinton. Bickham, Jenkins, you're probably a little bit more south of where the greatest amount of rotation is, but certainly something that I would be erring on the side of caution and getting into that tornado safe space. And if it's my family in Jenkins, I'm in that safe space. Franklinton, Bickham, I'm in that tornado safe space. Just wait for this storm to pass through. There has been indications of rotation. Nothing confirmed, but something that, let's see. Okay, we're getting some images. We'll try and get those on air as soon as possible. Ashley Rodrigue with the Sheriff's Office in Tangi sending us some pictures of damage in the East Fork community, and fairly significant damage. What, you know, again, I'm looking at this initial, I don't know what type of structure, but I'm sorry, just as I say this, I'm reading new information that comes in. Again, reports of the damage. We're now getting visuals of that damage, and without having been able to see what the structures were like before, it's hard to assess just how much damage is, but certainly several areas of damage being sent into the National Weather Service chat group. Okay, so kind of continuation of our warning into Washington Parish. Now you saw parts of the area already removed as the threat has moved out of Tangi, but now completely centered into Washington Parish. So around Franklinton, you want to be in that tornado safe space, as there has been that continued rotation indication. Not quite as apparent on the velocities. We've had nothing confirmed from this. We were looking at the possibility of debris, no debris being reported, at least either visually or from radar. So all good news, but err on the side of caution. Again, if my family is in Franklinton, I'm telling them to get into that tornado safe space now as we continue to watch this storm progress toward the northeast. So, you know, Clifton, you've already got the intense rainfall, lightning, you've already got the associated thunderstorm winds. With, regardless if there is a tornado, there is definitely rotation in this supercell thunderstorm, so you are going to get those strong winds regardless. And again, we talk about this all the time, damage is damage, whether it was from strong straight line winds within a strong thunderstorm or a tornado. Damage is damage. Injuries can occur in both of those scenarios, so even if there is not a tornado, you are certainly looking at some very strong winds around the Franklinton area up toward Clifton, and will continue for the next several minutes. So let's give it another 15, 20 minutes or so in the Franklinton community as these storms are moving at about 40 miles an hour or so. We'll continue to track those throughout the next couple of minutes or so. Elsewhere, as we were showing you from earlier, Alexandra was kind of analyzing the storms that are off to the west. While intense from Colemantown up toward Baywood, now almost just past Baton Rouge now. So Baton Rouge Metro starting to get out of the the threat, it does look like those storms, while intense, have not been showing any signs of rotation yet. So hopefully as this storm moves out of Franklinton, we'll have a little bit of a pause here to kind of regroup before the next little line of storms begins moving in. Mike?
All right, Chris, of course, as he continues to track that, we will break back in and go over to him if anything develops with that. In the meantime, we do have Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff Gerald Sticker on the phone with us, who is now in northern Tangipahoa Parish. Sheriff, good afternoon to you now. I know you guys have been watching this all morning. You are now, where are you now exactly?
I am in the East Fork community. We are headquartered out of Kentwood Fire Department. They're station number 2. And it's kind of our rallying point, if you will, for first responders. We have state police, of course, TPSO is here on the ground, our fire services, Acadian, DOTD, and so this is our command post that we're working out of. Extensive damage up here in the East Fork community, several residents damaged. There are some power lines down, so we have power crews out that are making that way safe so that we can get in with road crews, clear out trees, clear out debris, and we're just going house by house now. As it stands at this moment, no reported fatalities.
Sheriff, are you still there? I think we switched over to a live shot and may have cut the audio out from the sheriff. Sheriff,
can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, sorry about that. I think I lost you you were going house to house doing some clearing the homes there.
Sure, yes. So we are actively clearing residences as we speak, looking for anybody that may be stranded, injured, or worse. As it stands right now, we have no injuries to speak of, no fatalities. Just a lot of extensive damage that we're working through.
Yeah, fingers crossed it stays at just damage at this point. I think there was a rescue earlier in the day. Do you know any details behind that?
I don't know any details. I did hear that on our radio as I was driving up, that they were clearing some of the houses that they could get to, and there was one person that was stranded inside a damaged home, and they did get that person out. There again, as I understand it, uninjured.
Okay. What about road closures? I'm assuming there are some impassable roads here?
So yeah, it's just if you don't have any business in the East Fork community and north of Kentwood, please stay home. Obviously, we're still under watches, I would assume, and there are power lines down, there are trees down, and I'm sure there are trees that are probably damaged that have not come down. So it will do nothing but further inhibit our rescue efforts. So we just ask people just to stay clear out of Highway 1055, Highway 1054, Sanders Road, and just that surrounding communities north of Kentwood, especially here at East Fork.
Is it more northeast of Kentwood or more that northern corridor?
It's going to be northeast of Kentwood, where I'm at, of course, and it's a very rural area. I can only see what I can see from where I'm standing. Y'all probably have a better vantage point. I did speak to Sheriff Wally Jones, who's in Pike County, just across the state line, and so, they're dealing with weather issues there, and so we're all dealing with it, working together across state lines just to make sure all of our people are safe, and to we're doing everything that we can to clean this mess up.
Yeah, we thank you for what you guys are doing up there. We're looking at some live video from our end, so we're seeing some of that damage that you're talking about. Being that this is such a rural area, does that help you guys, or is it more, is it harder to kind of get into those areas to kind of check everything?
Well, both. It's rural, and the homes are, not on top of one another, and so you have a lot of damaged areas throughout these wooded areas, but it does make it a little more challenging because you have to go down dead-end roads, and we have to basically clear every road and every home. It's not like we can go into a community, a subdivision, so to speak, where there are 300 homes and they're all stacked on top of one another. So that's that challenge, and so, but there's some safety in that as well, that they're not stacked on one another. So. Did
you guys start getting calls for help through 911 or the sheriff's office, or you just kind of responded as you saw the need?
Yeah, our first call was actually from a St. Helena sheriff's office deputy who borders Tangipahoa Parish, and they spotted it and called it in. initially, and then of course other calls started coming in, and that's when we started turning resources to on this event.
Is there power where you are? You guys have electricity around you?
No, where we're at this fire station, we do not, and everywhere that I've come to driving in here, there are power lines down, and so this, I don't know what the count is. Obviously,
Sure.
The power company would have those numbers, but there's no electricity nowhere in this vicinity.
But all hands on deck for you guys and emergency responders up there, correct?
100%. We're on it, and we're doing everything we can. We're working with our parish officials, DOC, state police, fire agencies from around the parish. And so we're bringing every resource to bear on these communities. And so we are, we got our hands full, but we're handling this.
Well, Sheriff, I thank you for your time. We will certainly check back in with you a little bit later in the day. Be safe out there, and definitely keep us updated as you guys progress and go through things.
God, we appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. All right, we're going to go now to our Eleanor Tabone. We see her live right now. We've been looking at a live picture throughout the interview with the sheriff there. Eleanor, what are you seeing on the ground there?
Mike, let me just show you, because the damage here is very, very intense. Now, we could see that possible tornado came through. I'm out here in Kentwood, like we heard Chris saying earlier, and like you just mentioned and was talking to the sheriff. Look at the damage of this shed. You can just see, Troy's going to show you, the shed is gone. The shed is completely gone. You see the sides completely ripped out. You can see all these trees down. Further to the other side, Troy, if you pan a little bit that way, we see just of what appeared to be some sort of home that was there. Now you can see the trees are all bent out of shape. Now we've got some rain coming through again. It was dry for a little bit. But the trees across this entire area of Kentwood are bent or ripped in half, completely ripped. You can see the trees are gone right off the tops, knocked to the ground. Now this is a little convenience store or a little shop here that I'm told. That's right there, and this is where all the homes were around it. And like I mentioned, there are people that have come out now and are looking around and seeing what the damage and what that damage incurred. Like I mentioned, the buildings here are gone. Chris mentioned complete devastation. Some of these homes, all these, it looked like a truck shelter here, or a truck trailer, completely gone. People are out here looking at, I haven't spoken to these people yet, but they could be the residents here. This was their homes. They might have sought shelter elsewhere. But like I mentioned, and I spoke to the parish president just moments ago, the possible tornado ripped right through, and this is what we're seeing. Now I'm going to grab the parish president, the Tangipahoa parish president, Robbie. I'm going to grab him for us right now, and he's going to give us some details.
Rob's be mad at me.
I've got the parish president here right now. Robbie, talk to me about what happened and what we saw come through this area.
Well, obviously a tornado. Right behind us is pretty much the starting point. Went northeast through the East Fork community of Tangipahoa Parish, Sanders Road, Potts Road, 1054, 1055 area, went northeast toward Washington Parish, Mississippi. Thankfully, as of right now, no reported injuries. No, and everyone's accounted for. All of the people that live in the community. We have a great community up here. They look out for each other. They know who everyone is, and they are accounted for at this point. It goes about 2 miles or so, 2.5 miles to the northeast, and right now we're just waiting for the weather to clear and all the road equipment and all the various first responders continuing to reach out and search for everybody, confirm everybody's accounted for.
Talk to me about, we're seeing a lot of devastation here, some buildings here completely ripped apart. What did you see when you first got out here?
Well, I've been as far as you have so far. I was letting our first responders continue to work before I started getting out there. I don't want to be in their way, but the reports are real good. But there are probably, they're telling us numerous homes from what you see here damaged to completely devastated to some lesser than this. So that's, there's some people that are more fortunate than others, but the big thing is no injuries. At this point, and everyone is accounted for so far.
I did speak to one resident over there. He said that some roadways are unpassable right now because the trees down. What have you heard?
That's true. There's lots of trees down. Most all of these roads have at some point are blocked. Department DOTD assets are here. Tangipahoa Parish assets are on the way. The roads should be cleared shortly. Some of them have power lines. Entergy is here to de-energize the power lines so that all the road crews can work to clear I expect the roads to be cleared, as quickly as possible, as long as this weather stays like this. Although there's more bands coming, if it comes, we all have to take shelter and be protected. We ask that everyone, if you don't live here, if you don't have a family here, don't come sightseeing. We don't need the extra cars and people to deal with, and the weather's too bad to be out anyway, so please stay home.
Robbie, to stand here and look at this devastation, what are you first thinking when you see this?
Well, make sure that our citizens are as safe as they can possibly be. Make sure that we get them taken care of, cared for, and then then we'll start moving toward a true recovery of their properties. But the first and foremost is making sure that they're all safe and that they're going to be taken care of this evening.
I know you've been able to speak to some of the residents. How are they feeling after that storm came through?
Well, they were quite shaken up, as you can imagine, but overall they're doing pretty good.
Parish President Robbie, thank you so much for making time. I appreciate that. So Chris, Mike, as you can see, the rain is really starting to come down out here in Kentwood. Now, I want to show you again, Troy, if we can show just the trees across here, how they're completely snapped in half. You can see half the tree is completely gone out here. The other half is clearly on the ground. Like I mentioned, these homes, these barns or sheds here completely ripped apart. You can see the side of this one over here, Troy, if we point that way if possible. Just the side of it's gone, the roof of it is gone. Homes out in this Kentwood area completely destroyed. I haven't been able to, as we were live as soon as we parked and got out here, so I haven't been able to look around as much yet, but it looks like there's a house right behind these trucks over here that looks like it's just completely flattened by trees. Another home over on the other side, I don't know where that home was. All we see is debris. We see the siding of that house out there on the ground. We can see some power poles that are now slanted or completely come down. Like we heard the parish president say, they're trying to work to get these roadways clear. Now, I did speak to one resident when I first arrived here, and he mentioned that this road behind this convenience store is completely blocked because of trees down, and he told me his concern was his nephew and his partner just had a newborn child, so that he was concerned for the safety. So residents out here are concerned. Residents out here are still coming out to see the storm has passed, what they have left possibly. But like the parish president said, if you're in this area or in Tangipahoa Parish, stay inside. You don't need to come out sightseeing. You don't know what the especially we're seeing bands of rain coming through again. The roads are dangerous. You should not be driving through when we're having weather like this. But I'm going to go speak to some of the residents that I see out here and see what they can tell us. But I'll continue to bring you these live updates out here in Kentwood. Team?
To get out there and talk to more folks. And Chris, when you look at the damage that you see from the live shot that we just watched with Eleanor, we can see that this, really did, I guess, race across a large swath of area there. And Alexa was talking about this earlier when she saw it on the radar, that this was a pretty big storm, and here we are.
Yes, and it moved over. If we can go back to our weather graphics here for just a second, because I do want to kind of look at the damage. The couplet that we talk about here, that is indicative of the strong rotation of a tornado. You kind of see, I went back in time here. This is at 12:11. It was right on the parish line, and then at 12:18, that's when the couplet is right over Kentwood proper. So it went directly over the town of Kentwood just after 12:15 or so, and then kind of continued along very quickly. Within 10 minutes, it's already well to the northeast and moving almost into Mississippi. So, and that couplet was still showing up where the reds and greens are tightly wound and right next to each other. So roughly at around 12:15, it looks like that tornado passed directly over Kentwood. We can kind of go back to looking at some of that damage. Also want to update that the tornado warning that had been in effect for Washington Parish, that was allowed to expire at 2:30, so no longer in effect. So at the moment, no longer any active warnings for our viewing area, and also kind of updating the storms that are starting to move back into Kentwood. You just saw from the live shot there, it looks like they were starting to get into some heavy rainfall once again, and we do have some very heavy rainfall moving out of Livingston, St. Helena Parish, that will continue through Tangipahoa Parish. Right now, we're getting into some of that intense rainfall with lightning in Kentwood. But when we look at rotation, there is very, very little, and it's primarily a little bit more to the west. So these don't look like, as we're starting to see, something that Alexandra was kind of highlighting, the fact that when we start to get, instead of the rogue storms within the entire line, and we start to see that line kind of fill in, that usually means the winds are starting to become a little bit more parallel with regards to the surface winds and the winds aloft. When they're not parallel, that's when you get rotation, and you get a lot of rotation. If we start to see a little bit more of those winds paralleling each other, we don't get the storm we call wind shear. We don't get that rotation, and then we would not get the ingredients needed or the triggering mechanism for tornadic storms. We can still have the strong thunderstorms, and we can still certainly have some strong winds, but maybe not as much of a concern for tornadic storms. Still there, though. Still there. We got another couple of hours to go before we can kind of breathe that sigh of relief. But notice, kind of extreme western St. Helena Parish, you are now breathing that sigh of relief, as the more intense storms are now across the central part of the parish, and anything west, it's done. That is no longer a severe threat. So not terribly much longer will we have to contend with it over Tangi, but still an ongoing threat. And remember, we really haven't seen that line move deeper into Washington, St. Tammany, or anything on the South Shore yet. We've still got some time to go, and kind of riding along that line down to the south. Intense around Denham Springs as far as rotation goes. Nothing really jumping out. There's been a little bit of some isolated spots, but nothing that is really jumping out. And certainly when we look at the velocities, nothing that is jumping out as any kind of couplet indicating embedded rotation within the line of storms. And then a little bit farther down to the south, as we start to approach the river parishes, while intense thunderstorms, it's a little bit more broken, not as intense as the storms have been on the North Shore. And certainly we have been a little bit more, as we've been saying over the last couple of days, a little bit more of that jumping off point from some storms in southeast, or excuse me, in the North Shore across southeast Louisiana, and then jumping into southwestern Mississippi, where they have really intensified. That is where we had the confirmed tornado in Tylertown, and now looks like a confirmed tornado in Kentwood, probably around 12:15 or so. So for the folks in Kentwood right now, and again, we have Eleanor Tabone there. I don't know if she can hear us or if we can talk to her, just to see if she was able to kind of get any additional information, or if she was able to see any additional damage. As she had mentioned, as soon as they jumped out of the car, once they were able to get into position, they went live. So she really wasn't able to assess the damage, at least in her, outside of her vantage point, but just from what she could see, it was fairly significant. And it looked like those were the same images that we were getting into our chat group with the Weather Service. From those storms in Kentwood. So it looks like it's pretty much that same barn that she was showing you with what looked to be kind of an 18-wheeler cab in a, I say barn, it was more of a small shed, or large shed I should say, as opposed to any kind of a stronger structure. It looks like those are the same images that we are getting in from Eleanor Tabone, as well as what we got from the Sheriff's Office a little bit before that. Other storms that they're monitoring, they're keeping an eye out for a cell near Watson, Louisiana, kind of around more the Baton Rouge area, so we'll monitor that. It's something that, again, the Weather Service is keeping a close watch on all of these, and we'll continue to do so through the afternoon hours. Again, to kind of reiterate where we stand right now, we have a field crew on the ground in Kentwood from a confirmed tornado just outside of our area. A likely confirmed tornado in Tylertown with significant damage likely. Have not gotten any reports from there just yet, but at least based on what we had seen from the velocities, from the reflectivity, but more so from our debris signature, it looked like the storm that passed across Tylertown, Mississippi was significant. Fairly significant from the storm that passed over Kentwood. At this time, no active warnings in effect for our area.
So, Chris, I want to ask you something. A lot of folks may be looking at this on the North Shore as these, updates come in. Here we are sitting on the South Shore, whether I'm in Jefferson Parish or Orleans Parish. What is my timeline here as to when these storms will be knocking on our door?
Well, we just had one little heavy shower pop up right around from City Park out toward the lakefront. So we're already starting to get some of these pop-up showers. So it's kind of already begun. We can go jump to our high-res computer model and get an idea of when maybe that line starts moving in. Again, these models aren't perfect. You can kind of see it's maybe a little bit more east of where a lot of those storms, excuse me, a little bit more west from where those storms are in river parishes. But as we kind of time this out, probably within an hour, we'll start to get more and a steady increase in the rainfall around the metro area. So certainly before that across our river parishes. And then that will continue into the 5 o'clock hour. By about 6, we may start to see our South Shore showers and storms maybe on the decline. And certainly, again, as I said, anything west, you're in the clear. So areas west already starting to see settled weather by 6 o'clock across Tangipahoa Parish, across much of Washington, and still ongoing in central and eastern St. Tammany Parish, moving into Pearl River and eventually into Hancock County. And then by about probably before 7, I think just about all of us are kind of in the clear. And then definitely by 8, 9 o'clock, again, if you have plans later on tonight, I think we're going to be in the clear from any additional severe weather. So still another hour plus to go for more of that rain to start moving deeper into the metro area. But we already have a few showers that have started popping up at this hour.
You know, when I look at that radar kind of move across the screen there, is it a fair assessment to say that most of the severe stuff will remain on the North Shore, or is that too hard to judge at this point? No,
it does look like that is going to be the trend. We've seen that from our high resolution models today. And that was something that was highlighted by the Storm Prediction Center. They were called meso discussions, where they kind of deep dive into the active severe weather. And these are not the watches, these are those meso discussions. And notice it's primarily for the North Shore and into Mississippi especially. These are the areas of greatest threat for the intense to violent tornadoes going forward. So even the Storm Prediction Center and the model trend does look to be that a bit more of a focus. And again, I don't want to say that that means in the metro area you can go out, do whatever. This is still something we need to pay attention to very closely through the afternoon. But certainly it looks like more activity will develop north of the lake.
And it can pop up pretty quickly, whether you're on the north or
very
south.
Quickly. That sometimes we only get a few minutes notice that these storms become rotating storms, and then a few minutes later it's showing indications that it is dropping a tornado. So yes, sometimes we only have a few minutes. What is more anxiety about severe weather is that all we can do is tell you the ingredients are there, the atmosphere is primed, we will definitely get strong storms. Whether or not they become strong to severe or reach the limits of severe weather is an unknown, and exactly where they form is an unknown.
And we haven't had a lot of focus right now down on the bayou parishes at this point.
Very quiet right now. This is a look at radar, and I'll kind of zoom in a little bit more on our bayou parishes. It's been very quiet. Again, the line is a little bit weaker the farther south you go. Well, we've had maybe a few showers, maybe some brief isolated downpours move across the bayou parishes. Not too much, although it is now getting a bit closer to Thibodaux. So western Lafourche Parish now getting in on some of those more intense storms, and those continue kind of along the line itself is moving east, but these storms themselves are riding along that boundary. So now we're getting the storms moving out of Thibodaux and Lafourche to then more into St. James, St. Charles Parish, excuse me, St. James, St. John Parish, as they continue along that boundary kind of up toward Lake Maurepas, and then eventually continue into the North Shore.
When it comes to the more severe parts of this system, where in our viewing area would you say is the next big focal point?
Well, I don't want to discount even these storms that are moving out of Morgan City, Donaldsonville. So a little bit of a focus will be ongoing in our river parishes. So St. James right now, where we have though seen more of the active storms are these that have been moving out of St. Helena and Livingston Parish. And then initially Tangipahoa Parish, this line will be moving east. So as it does so, then the focus will be more on Washington and St. Tammany Parish.
That big cell that kind of pushed out of Louisiana into Mississippi, a couple of hours ago, has that completely dissipated, or where is that now?
No, well, I don't know if this is exactly the same cell, but notice we still are getting confirmed tornado reports now moving toward, say, Collins, Mississippi, Taylorsville, Bay Springs. We're starting to get a little bit out of the range of even our radar as we move farther north and east along that line. But this was definitely going to be the focus And remember, Hattiesburg to Jackson, so not too far removed from our immediate viewing area, we're under that high risk level 5, which is very rare. You don't see the Storm Prediction Center place areas under a level 5 very often. That usually is once every few years. Do you see that? And they don't do that just, you know, as kind of a, well, we'll do it to err on the side of caution. There is a lot of work and effort and forecasting and confidence that goes into issuing those level 5 threats. And that's exactly where, so far over the last couple of hours, we have seen these confirmed tornado reports kind of spreading deeper into Mississippi.
And Aaron, our producer, I don't know if you can hear me, if you can pull up the video that we, the new video that we have out of Kentwood there, and I want Chris, if he's able to look at it, just to kind of, when you think about the damage, like we saw in Eleanor's live shot there, and that's with the sheriff's office. There's some other video as well. But you look at the damage strewn about on people's front yards, then you see trees snapped. How long does it usually take for folks from the National Weather Service to kind of get out there and on the ground to survey all of this?
They're not going to do that, unfortunately, until at the earliest tomorrow. They are right now in kind of their forecast warning mode, where they're more worried about the ongoing storms. And then after that, and again, you know, you want to start cleaning up immediately, so they'll base a lot of their initial assessments on videos like this, pictures that are taken from local officials, and then they will go out and assess. They'll actually use drones, they'll use GIS, which is graphic information systems for mapping. This is a live look out of Macomb from a traffic camera there. We can actually kind of look up at the storms, nothing severe, but certainly some intense rainfall there north of Magnolia toward Macomb. So that's kind of what visibilities are like within some of these heavier thunderstorms, where visibilities are dramatically reduced. Thankfully, at least at this time, no severe weather, no, let's see, the rotation, you know, very, very weak along that line south from Macomb toward Magnolia, then deeper into Kentwood. There is some indication of rotation in Kentwood. Within some of these heavier thunderstorms. I'm kind of hoping now you've got a lot of officials and a lot of folks out there assessing the damage, be able to get into, there not too many structures where they are, but you know, I'm also speaking to our team, Eleanor Tabone, Troy Toops, make sure you're able to get into the car and pay attention to these storms. Not that there is anything jumping out with regards to a tornado, but what we're likely seeing is more of the line, because you can kind of see that that is not a couplet. When you see the green and red, that line, that just means the winds are coming either toward the radar, which is in Hammond, and then moving away from the radar, and that's kind of what we're looking as the leading edge of those storms rolling into Kentwood. So while not necessarily tornadic, certainly some very strong winds just now pushing into the Kentwood area. So good idea for a lot of those folks that are out now assessing the damage to get in. Going back to your question, Mike, with the Weather Service folks to then go and actually survey the damage, they will go, and it's kind of painstaking. They have to go out and physically look at where they think the tornado touched down. They will basically canvass the entire square mileage of where they think that tornado went, but we can also use drones now and get a better idea of where the path might be. And then, as I'd mentioned in a little bit earlier, is that tornadoes are not rated based on when they are on the ground. They are rated after the fact based on how much damage they caused. They do take into account what types of structures were damaged. They look at trees. If they're all fallen in the same direction, that might be more straight line winds. If they're in various directions, that indicates rotation, so more indicative of a tornado. So we probably won't get that confirmed until tomorrow at the earliest, Mike.
Of course, the good news right now is the Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff saying no serious injuries reported, mainly just a lot of damage. They are doing some searches of homes just to clear those out right now. So that's some good news coming from the severe weather. We, of course, will continue to track this throughout the day. If we need to break into programming, we will do it, of course, to keep you safe. And also be sure to join us on WWL Plus at 5 o'clock. We will have a streaming newscast for you there. Until then, we'll get you back to programming.
This has been a severe weather alert from WWL Weather, sponsored by Egan Insurance Agency.